Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Breakdown with your boy, Tony, the Pugilist. And, there's nobody else. It's just me today, guys. Hope you're well. Unfortunately, Base is not with us today. He's dealing with the transition of his father. The internment was occurred today, so Base is not with us, but we send our love and prayers out to our dear brother Base today. So instead, you just got me. This should be interesting. It's been a while since I've done a show on my own. I used to do it on a regular when I first started getting into boxing podcasting. But here we are, another weekend gone, another mammoth amount of sport. We had Wimbledon, the finals. We had the Euros, the final. And of course, we had the Copa America final. Not only that, this weekend I found myself watching sprint. Don't know if you guys are into athletics at all, but there's a Netflix documentary called Sprint, which chronicles the period up to the World 2023 Championships and concentrates on the protagonists in the 100 meter and the 200 meters, which I was very interested to watch because in 15 days, I will be in Paris for nothing less than the Olympic Games, and I will be at one of those sprint finals. I'm going to be at the 200 meter sprint final, which will be very exciting because I had to consider which day would I go. Would I take the 100 meter, which is the glamour event, or would I take the 200? And I decided for the 200 because I also get the 400 final and I get the 110 meter hurdles. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the Olympics, and that is why my weekend was dedicated in most part to analyzing a great deal of sport. But of course, the number one sport is the boxing. You better believe it. None other than showing up my newest acquisition, the pugilist, Sugar Ray Robinson. Undoubtedly one of the best that ever did it. So before I go any further, guys, let me greet the defeaters in the house. We have first and foremost the person who was first in at a very early time this afternoon was my guy, Philip Answer. Big up to you, Philip. Then coming in after that was Untraceable. He says, I didn't catch the top rank card, so I look forward to hearing all about it. I've got some highlights of that, hopefully. I got Dan the Man, the hardest working man. Big up to yourself, my guy. Jam Down 187. What's up, my guy? Manners and respect every time. And then we have Jonah 31. Yes, my guy. Big up to you. So, England lost. I was expecting nothing less. I was very surprised they got to the final. But hey, you know what? They got there. Flowers to Gareth Southgate. That guy got us to 2 finals and a semi in the World Cup. For that, he deserves flowers because who else would have got you there? And let's be honest, with the toxic nature of Britain, especially those right-wing fans, you know the ones who I'm talking about, white people. It's a tough job. It's a tough job. So, he's had to traverse a lot of negative energy. He's had to negotiate, trying to get players who were in form, weren't in form, trying to make big decisions, leaving out, people who have been there for him on a regular basis, likes of Sterling, likes of Rashford, leaving them at home and taking new kids in the block and then basically getting them to another final. Despite not playing good football, you can't knock the man. He didn't lose a game until the final, and he got to the final. Lots of other managers, much more highly vaunted than him, didn't make it. So, you know what? Good on to him. Let's not get into the football talk. This is the boxing channel. Yeah, Philip Answer. Big up yourself. Incidentally, yeah, I'm going to be at the boxing finals at the Olympics. Myself and Dani from Fightfantvlive, we will be. We're booked up. We've got finals tickets for a number of days. So as you know, different days have different categories of finals. So we will be at various days. I think there's at least one day that we're both at the same day, but we're on different days seeing different finals. I know I have the heavyweight final on one of my days. I've got the welterweight final on one of my days as well. But yeah, Base might be upset. I doubt it. Big up to you, G Chain in the house. How you doing, my guy? Yeah. Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. Anyway, as G Chain says, if you haven't already done so, hit that button. Hit that button. So, guys, yeah, you know, it's been an interesting weekend. There hasn't been the big fights, you know. There's only really been one fight this weekend that was really a world title fight. Just dropping things around the house. Yeah, there was only really the one fight this weekend that was really big. Of course, that was Jerome Boots Enis fighting David Avanan. So we're going to leave that one till the end. And we will start off our review, which is going to be quite short tonight because of the lack of action, with what was the top rank card, which was originally scheduled to be Janibek defending his middleweight world title. Don't know if people know, but Janibek, a couple of days before the weigh, or a day before the weigh-in, he found himself unwell, ended up being transported to hospital, and effectively was unable to even hit the scales. So as a result, the fight was pulled the day before the weigh-in. That is why, if anyone has a question why he didn't lose his title, because he didn't hit the scales. But essentially, you know, we had no main event, and as a result, the sub card or the undercard was promoted, and it was led by, find it, Ray Moralia versus Tevin Farmer. Now, let's get me notes out. Ray Moralia, trained by the great Robert Garcia, coming in with a record of 20-0. The NABF lightweight title was his lightweight title, the NABF version, North American Boxing Federation, for those of you who don't know, was on the line, and they were also contesting the WBO NABO lightweight title, which was a vacant title. Tevin Farmer, two-time world champion, previously at 130, 130, coming up to 135 to meet Ray Moralia. He had two fights at 135 before. His record 33-5-1. So here's a little bit of the action. Nope, wrong one. Big up Alexander in the house. So as you can see, Moralia just a bigger guy, 5'8" over 5'6", weighed in at 134 to 134.7. The 3, 4, 5-inch reach advantage. The big thing here is activity. You see that in the two sets of fight breakdowns, Moralia has been boxing. I think he fought 3 times last year. Tevin, Farmer hadn't been boxing as regularly. He'd had a 3-year hiatus away from the sport up until last year. So he came back last year. He had a couple of fights. This fight was a very interesting fight. It had peaks and troughs. It went, forward and backwards. There's an interesting stat for you. 106 punches landed to 109. Effectively, the video is going faster than I can read it, but the action really was quite interesting to watch, because there were rounds that clearly one guy would have over the other. Let me get this off the screen so I can get back to the action. Let's restart that again. Yeah, Moralia came out. Farmer was very good defensively, I thought, especially in the early rounds. Rounds 1, 2, and 3. Tevin was very good defensively, and effectively he was able to negate, as you can see there, the activity over the last couple of years. And Moralia's clearly fought more times than Tevin over the same period of time, and activity makes a huge difference. The action you're seeing there is from the last round of the 10-round bout. But essentially, as I said, in the early rounds, first 3 rounds, Tevin Farmer was very, very good at basically moving away from Moralia's power punches and either, slipping them or catching them on the body. To the point that effectively I scored the first 3 rounds for Farmer. Now, I have an interesting graphic in relation to this fight, because I took the punch totals, the punch stats from CompuBox, and what you can see is the first top part of the graph shows total punches landed, and where I've put a blue, those are rounds won by Tevin Farmer. Where I put a brown, those are rounds won by Moralia. The yellow one, which is round 3, was a drawn round. They both landed 8 punches. But you probably noticed that Moralia only won the last 4 rounds. And Farmer effectively outlanded Moralia 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds to 4. So it's very interesting how he landed. But look at the next graph underneath, which is the power punches. And in that section, I don't know if you can see it well enough, but effectively, Moralia won round 3, round 7, 8, 9, and 10. Round 4 was an even round, and Farmer won rounds 1, 2, 5, and 6. So you could tell, based on punches landed, based on power punches landed, that it was a very difficult fight to score, because effectively there were rounds where the punch counts were very similar, and effectively we ended up with a fight where the total landed punches were extremely even. I think it was 109 to 106 at the end of the fight. It will come up on a graphic very shortly, and you will see that the actual balance of total punches landed actually went in the favor of Tevin Farmer. As far as my own reading of the fight was concerned, there were a couple of swing rounds. Swing rounds basically mean you could have scored a round to either fighter. So it wouldn't have surprised me if this had been, 96, 94 one way to the other, or 94, 96 the other way. I essentially thought that this was a very even fight, which Moralia squeaked. And when I say squeak, look, 106 to 109 is the total punches landed. 96, 93, 97, 92 was crazy. 95, 94, probably a little bit more realistic. And that would probably, with a 95, 94, you're going to get even rounds in that. So, yeah, this was an interesting fight. If anyone else saw that, Philip Answer says, I think Farmer needs to retire. Post-fight, Keyshawn Davis and Robert Garcia agreed to make a fight between Keyshawn Davis and Ray Moralia. He did say, Ray said, I want the champs next. Berenchik called my name. I'm calling his now. So he did call out Dennis Berenchik, who he's in line to fight. He did also mention Shakur Stevenson. You know, after his performance last week. In my estimation, when you struggle with a guy of the standard of Tevin Farmer, whose activity's not been great, you better be careful what you call for. But you know, at the end of the day, he's at that position where he's now becoming mandatory. So you know, Berenchik would probably be the low lying fruit. But that would be an interesting fight. So I like to see that fight made, and then the winner of those two go on and see where they go next, potentially up against Tank Davis or Shakur Stevenson or even Vasily Lomachenko. Gave Manda wobbly in round 10. Yeah, you know, Tevin was wobbled in round 10. But, you know, for a lot of that fight, he was well in it. As I said, you know, there were rounds which were very close. It would be interesting to see where both fighters go next. Did you hear that the WBO have ordered Janibek to provide evidence for the withdrawal? No, I didn't hear that, Philip. So thank you for that intel. Interesting. Alexander says the middleweight division used to be stacked. It did indeed. I mean, you know, yesteryear, the great days, you know, even this guy fought at middleweight. So, okay, I see something else that I'm going to address a little bit later. Big up to Craft Costanza. Good to see the sea snake is into his boxing. The sea snake. Is that my name now? Okay, what other comments do we have that I need to address? Okay, so that was that one. The next fight I'm going to address was the prelim fight to that fight, which was Ruben Villa versus Suleiman Segawa. Villa, Mexican, fighting the Ugandan Suleiman Segawa. This was for the WBC silver featherweight title, 10-rounder. Let's go. A little bit of footage. So 22-1, Ruben Villa, USA. 16-4-1, Suleiman Segawa. This was a fight that ebbed and flowed even. The favorite going into the fight was Ruben Villa, but Segawa was able to upset the rhythm of Villa in several rounds, and effectively, just with, again, he didn't appear to have anything really big by way of power, but he was just hardworking and consistent with throwing his hands. And as a result, I gave him round 1, 2, and 3. Round 4, I scored to Ruben Villa. Round 5 went to Segawa. Round 6 went to Ruben Villa. And then from there on in, I scored every round for Suleiman Segawa. not a name that you probably heard of. It was certainly my first time of seeing Seawa. You know, not bad little fight overall. Scores are 98, 92, 97, 93, and 96, 94, going for the new WBC silver featherweight champion, Suleiman Seawa. Congratulations to him and his team. Uganda is very proud. Seashells on the seashore. Okay, I get it. Thank you, Kraft. You're giving me an explanation of the sea snake. It's from House of the Dragons. I'm not a big fan of House of Dragons or whatever the original series was that preceded it. So I've never seen any of those shows. But I have some contacts who can furnish me with the information when necessary. But yeah, that was an interesting fight. Decent little scrap. As I said, nothing big by way of a title. It was a 10-rounder, went the distance, and was just a little interesting watch. There were other fights on the card, but none of which I saw, bar one which had a knockout. I can't remember who scored it. Give me a second. Jonathan Lopez. Yeah, I saw the Jonathan Lopez stoppage. Was off. Wasn't like a killer punch. It was sort of like an accumulation, and then he got his opponent out through the side of the ring. Anyway, we move on to the one of the other two cards. The first one, which was the Matchroom card, which saw the debut on Matchroom for Jaron Boots Enis. And on the undercard of that fight was Khalil Coe, 8-0-1, the light heavyweight from America, who was fighting Kwame Ritter, who was 11-1-0. Khalil Coe, one that I have mentioned before, again falls into my ones to watch. He's got a decent record, as I said, 8-0 with one draw. Okay, this again was a 10-rounder. Big up to Clyde, my brother in the house. We'll talk about that a bit later, Jim Bob, but welcome to the chat. So Khalil Coe was fighting a gentleman by the name of, trying to get his first name, and that was Gallegos, but I can't remember his first name. No. Kwame Ritter. And this is the second round. As you can see, Khalil made light work of Kwame Ritter. Very heavy-handed kid. Yeah, so he moves from 8-0 to 9-0 with 7 KOs. Show you that again. Khalil Cole, also called Big Stepper, 5'10", from Jersey City, just outside of New York. Obviously, as a light heavyweight, he's in a stat division. So it'll be interesting to see his trajectory and where he ends up, because he could, of course, come across at some point in time one of the many light heavyweights that we have here in the UK. He made light work of Kwame Ritter. And he's got a decent resume as well, says Jim Bob. So on his record, he's got wins, TKOs against Juan Osuna, Kenmon Evans, Bonit Bisla, and James Quitter, amongst others. So that was Khalil Cole. Now, also on the card, a very brief bit of highlight for yourself. We had Sky Nicholson. Sky was defending her world title, her WBC featherweight title, against Diana Vargas. Sky, of course, is unbeaten at 10-0, and she was facing Diana Vargas, who was 19-1-0. 28-year-old Sky facing off against 32-year-old Diana Vargas. And as you can see, she delivered quite a beautiful shot there from range. That is Sky Nicholson's range. That is what she specializes at. And essentially, through the entire 10 rounds, that was all she did. She literally keeps that distance. You see the distance she's at now, and she landed that punch with regularity. She was able to beat this girl 10 rounds to 0 because she's a risk-averse fighter. Even when she gets a hard punch in like you saw her do there, she never steps in and tries to finish her work. She's always very careful to say, I'm going to stay away, I'm going to continue to beat her at arm's length. Now, you can draw comparisons with a certain Shakur Stevenson, who also fights at length. There's been a lot of talk this week about Shakur Stevenson's boxing technique. And it's interesting because Sky Nicholson literally fights in exactly the same way. She stands at a good distance. She's very good at judging distance. She's got a decent jab, and she uses her length to allow her to strike and not be hit. She gets hit very, very rarely. And in fact, for Diana Vargas, I can't even say how many times she actually hit Sky Nicholson. It was one-way traffic the whole way. Star Fox in the house, big up. Just for your information, Star Fox, Base is burying his father today, so hence why I am the sole protagonist on the show today. Big up to the breakdown regulars and newcomers also. Yeah, indeed. So big up yourself, Star Fox. So yeah, another easy, tactically flawless performance from Sky Nicholson. Nothing more that can be said about her. Will she ever change her style? Does she need to? It's not a very attractive style. I know G Chain in the chat is a massive fan of fighters who like to go in and put themselves in the firing line. And we'll be talking about a fighter who maybe didn't need to do so in Jerome Boots Ennis a bit later. You know, sometimes you have to say to yourself, is it worth a guy putting themselves, or a woman, I should say, putting themselves at harm's way just to entertain the crowd? You know, as I said last week when talking about Shakur, you know, are you going to be there if he ends up getting knocked out and ends up in hospital with brain damage? Are you going to be there at 60 when he's got dementia or worse? You know, so for those guys that can go into the sport, do the business, and come out with all faculties intact, aka Floyd Money Mayweather, respect to you, because the game is properly about hitting or not getting hit. And I know we do love the old crash bang wallop, but you know, some guys and some girls are super blessed at the art of hitting and not being hit. Sky Nicholson, you know, we all know there are bigger fish out there for her to fry, which will cause her nightmares. But while she's dealing with what she's dealing with, she's doing the business and getting the W's. So good on to her. We'll see where she goes next. Right. The next fight of the night that I'm going to review is from the same card. It will be... get this right. Gonna be Jalil Hackit against Peter Dobson. Now, here we had a 10-round welterweight fight. Jalil Hackit came in 8-0. Fight coming in against Peter Dobson, who was 16-1-0. Both fighters from the US. Jalil Hackit, 5'11". Peter Dobson, 5'10". This got tasty at the weigh-in. Might even have been the press conference, where essentially Jalil Hackit got his hands around the throat of Peter Dobson. Which I think you'll see there. Yeah, it was the presser. Both weighed in on for the WBA Continental Americas title. And again, we saw a very entertaining fight. Which Jalil Hackit won on a unanimous decision. Scores were 97-93, 97-93, and 96-94. Now, Jalil Hackit, another youngster that you might want to keep your eyes open for. He's 21 years old, also known as Major Hackit, Jalil Major Hackit. Has a KO, has a record of 7 KOs from his now 9 fights. Very impressive, very impressive boxer. Get my records out here. So yeah, that was a very good fight. Can't remember too much about the way in which I know it went back and forth. 100%, it's a fight. We want to be entertained. G Chain chipping in and saying he don't want to see none of this tappy stuff. He wants to be entertained. He wants blood, sweat, and tears, and all the other things that come along with it. But yeah, this was a very good fight. You know, both fighters had their moment in the fight. It ebbed and flowed, but essentially, as I said, Jalil prevailed. as I said, 97, 93, 96, 94. So there was only a couple of rounds in it. You know, Peter Dobson definitely was able to win certain rounds. He was very aggressive. Obviously, with the age advantage that he had over Jalil Hackit, he did try to be the sort of the daddy in the ring and try to, you know, impose himself over Jalil. He's actually aged 34, so you know he's obviously got a lot more experience than Jalil. And as I said, you know what you find with elder fighters, they've got the experience, they've got the savvy, they got the know-how, and he was trying to use that to his maximum against Jalil. But as I said, Jalil, a very good operator, very good technically. This was a fight that G-Chain you would have liked because, you know, there was a lot of toe-to-toe action. Both guys put their self in the firing line with the ability to basically, you know, hurt one another. You know, the hurt game was in action here. And, yeah, a very good fight to watch overall. But as I said, separated by about 3 rounds from me in favour of Jalil Hackit. But it was a very entertaining fight for the 10 rounds that we saw. So where does Jalil Hackit go? As I said, it's a welterweight fight, stacked division. You know, there's a lot of fights out there for him in that division. So we shall see. We'll keep another eye on another prospect coming up for Bob Arum and Top Rank. So that leads me to, actually, before I go to the main event of that card, I'm going to mention very quickly some fighting that we saw. Was that Sunday? It was the prize fighter tournament in Tokyo. There was some British interest in there. Kieran Conway, Aaron McKenna, Mark Dickinson. Interesting, some of the action from that fight. I do have a little bit. Aaron McKenna against Giovanni Estella. These are all 10 rounders in the early stage of this prize fighter competition. As you can see, McKenna teeing off, and he won his quarterfinal against Estella. Sorry. The next one, a small amount of high weights again. Kieran Conway against Ziliatia. I made a complete mess of that name. But essentially, Conway was too strong for his opponent and stopped him. Another good stoppage on the record for Kieran Conway. This is an interesting concept of prize fighter because it's not like the prize fighter we used to have over here in the UK, where it was 3 rounds and then you move on to the next round and you do all the fights on the same night. No, there are 8 fighters. They'll do 10 rounders. So there were 4 bouts on the night, and then they go through to the semi-final, and essentially the winners fight on another night. So we saw in the other 2 semi-finals, or quarterfinals, we saw Kunimati beating Kaney, and we saw Mark Dickinson losing to Takisayo. Interesting concept, as I said, because we don't normally see prize fighter in that kind of format. But, you know, we will be keeping an eye on the semi-finals when they occur. And so that leads me to reviewing the last fight of the night, which is the headline bout from Saturday night. Jerome Boots Enis facing up against 31-0. Boots Enis was going into this fight, facing up against David Avanan from Armenia via Germany, who was 34-1, as you probably remember. David was beaten in 2 fights ago by Terence Crawford, stoppage in 6 rounds. So Jaron Enis was really at he'd been the groundwork had been put in to see if he could improve the win over Avanan. Kunimoto Kalkani, yeah, that's the guy Star Fox has put in. So yeah, this was Boots' opportunity to see if he could upgrade on the performance of Crawford over Avanan. David Avanan for the IBF World Welterweight title. Now, everybody and his mother probably knows already that this fight got stopped in 5 rounds, or got stopped at the end of the 5th round. Avanan didn't come out for the 6th round after getting knocked down in round 5, as you can see there. Beautiful left hook from Jaron Enis. Essentially, Jaron was basically working right in the pocket with David Avanan. David Avanan, very well known for punch output, throwing combinations. He's a hard puncher himself, and Jaron Enis essentially said, "Okay, tough guy, you want to play tough? Let's see who's tough." G-Chain, you must have been happy with this fight, because, you know, I would totally understand if Jaron Boots Enis just totally outboxed David Avanan. He didn't need to get involved in a slugfest, but he decided he was going to do so for the entertainment of the fans, and he decided to do so to see if he could, as I said, improve on the way Avanan was taken out by Bud Crawford. What did you make of Boots Ennis' defense? Was it garbage in this fight? As I said, you know, he made a decision to go to war. I think, you know, people, I've heard the comments since the fight took place where people are saying he gets hit too much. Well, quite simply, he got hit too much because he decided to stand in the pocket. If you stand in the pocket, you're going to get hit. No ifs, buts, or maybes. But what you have to say to yourself is, am I willing to stand in the pocket, take a shot to give a shot? And that's what was clear. He clearly decided, I'll take a shot to give a shot. You know, and often in the 5 rounds that we saw, he was giving more shots than he was receiving. But it was entertaining, as Alex the Great says. It was entertaining. I'm glad he didn't stink out the joint like Shakur in his past 2 fights. Yeah, you know, the fact that he decided to stay in the pocket and work with a guy who wants to be in the pocket, you know, worked very well for Boots Ennis, because he was much sharper, much crisper, much harder hitter, and he was able to showcase his hand speed, his choice of shots, which were superlative. You know, he was literally putting on a clinic in terms of choice of shots. You know, the body shots he chose were beautiful. And that, as Alexander the Great says, that's how you treat your hometown. Yeah, I forgot to mention, it was a homecoming fight for Boots Ennis. Philip says, I think he got hit too much in this fight because he probably didn't rate Avanan's power. Absolutely. That's the point. If you don't think that the opposition is strong enough puncher, you know, you just walk through anything they throw. And I know I'm a boxer. You know, I will stand in a pocket with anybody unless you can punch real hard. If you don't punch me hard enough to deter me from standing in the pocket, I'm going to stand right in front of you. I'll ride your punches. I'll take the punches that you do land because I know I'm going to land bigger, harder, stronger punches than you. I'm going to land faster punches than you. I'm going to land more punches than you. And that's exactly what Jaron did. He was able to, you know, defeat Avanan in every department. You know, inside work, outside work. It didn't matter how we mixed it up. He was just beating him on every count. So yeah, that's what I thought of that performance. Very good performance from Boots. Obviously, the talk starts again about, you know, is he ready for Terence? I think he's ready for Terence. Whether he wants to go up to 154 and match Terence at 154, I don't see Terence coming back to 147. Is the short and tall. Eddie, of course, was talking up Boots. You know, as Eddie does, you know, he's a master promoter because this is what he does. Jordan, nice to see you in the chat. Jordan says, I agree 100%. Jaron isn't reckless or slack. He's very smart and able. He's a very smart and able fighter to understand who he's playing chess or going to war with. Yeah, you just got to know horses for courses. You know, I've seen enough of Boots Enis to be able to see if he needs to box, he'll box. If he needs to slug, he'll slug. But what he chooses to do, he's always best at. You know, if he's warring with you, he's better at you. He's better at it. If he's boxing with you, he's better than that at you. So there is really, you know, only now onwards and upwards for Boots. He's definitely going to be somebody that I foresee, you know, looking to unify belts. You know, he should be looking at those other champions and seeing if he could get a match there. If he can get Crawford, all the better. It would be a great fight. I would still pick Crawford because I do still think Crawford is the best boxer, the best boxing IQ in the game, bar none. But that's not to say that he doesn't give him a good battle and he's close to, you know, being able to say, you know, look, I'm up there with the elites in the game. He's very close to that. Obviously, he's got to unify titles. He's got to win belts at multiple weights to be able to say he's at that level. But from what I see, he's definitely someone that deserves credit and his flowers. Alex says, who do you think has the advantage at 147 and 154 in Boots and Crawford fought? At 147, Boots would have it. At 154, I think Boots is a big guy. I don't know how long he can stay at 147 is the honest answer. Is there actually an advantage? I just said Boots at 147, but actually when I think about it, I don't think Crawford would struggle to get to 147, but I just think he's made the mental decision that I've gone up now. You know, I'm chasing Canelo, and as a result, I don't see him going back down to 147. I think he's looking at his exit strategy now and legitimizing himself as an all-time great with the next set of fights that he has. He doesn't need Boots Enis, whereas obviously Boots would love to have a name like Crawford on his record. Philip Answer says, I think Eddie has now moved past Conor Benn and is invested in Jaron Enis. Makes absolute sense. Can we even talk about Conor Benn anymore? He's dead food in this game right now. Unfortunately, you know, it is what it is. Give me a second, guys. Just I'm back. I accidentally forgot to put my charger on, so I nearly ran out of power. So Boots looks like he was a middleweight in the ring against Avanan. Yeah, he did. He's a big welterweight. He's very big at the weight. And if you want to talk about big, then have you seen Majamov pictures recently? He looks like he looks like a light heavyweight. he's that big. I mean, his arms. Whoo! Crawford's got to focus on Majamov, and yeah, he definitely has to focus. But of course, you know, I've seen him working out, and he's in the zone. He's got his team around him. I expect him to navigate Majamov, but he's a big guy. He's a huge guy. You know, will he actually make the weight? You know, that's the thing. But yeah, it's a big leap for Terence Crawford up to 154 against a very big fighter in Majamov. So guys, any more questions while I'm here? Because we are very near to the hour. I've pretty much reviewed all of the boxing from the weekend now. Majamov looked really bulky in that photo, biceps like Prime Roy Jones. Yeah, he did. You know, massive arms. So quick look ahead to this weekend. We have the triple header with Junto Nakatani versus Astrolabia. Also on the card, we've got Tanaka versus Rodriguez and Kano versus Blasquaga. So there's a big card taking place it's a top ranked card taking place in Tokyo. That's the big fight of the weekend. What else have we got this weekend? Question from Alex. Do you think Shakur attempts to unify or fight Cepeda? I think boxing politics is going to trump all of our potential fights for Shakur Stevenson, because it really is dependent on where he goes. As you know, he's now a free agent. Does he go with Eddie Hearn or does he go with Floyd Mayweather, who are the two names that are being touted at the moment? I think what he does next is very much dependent on where he goes. There's a Cepeda fight. Apparently, Oscar De La Hoya has said unless he signs with Golden Boy, he ain't getting that fight. Despite the fact that I think the WBC have ordered the fight. So it's going to be, as I said, boxing politics are going to be in play around that particular fight and what goes on with Shakur going forward. Alexis Rocha is on this weekend. And so is Jake who? Jake who? Yeah, I don't deal with no Jakes. The dirty Jakes, so said the kids at school. So Alexis Rocha, will be looking out for him. As I said, the triple header coming from Tokyo. Other than that, looks like it could be a little bit of a quiet weekend. Base will be back next week with myself. Look out for his show. I will now proceed to put our banners up. So you can catch Base on his channel, BaseDaKID, the Hardcore Casual on YouTube. On Instagram, it's at BaseDaKID. On Twitter X, it's at B_A_S_E. And on TikTok, he is BaseDaKID.THC. All right, all down there in the ticker tape. Don't forget to join him. He will be probably doing a casual stream at some point this week, possibly. That normally takes place on a Wednesday. He might move it to Thursday. But certainly the weekend wrap he done already. look out for Bases Picks on Friday. Myself, Tony the Pugilist Boy. Catch me on YouTube on Pugilistboy. Catch me on Twitter X as Pugilistboy. Catch me on Instagram at Pugilisticboy on Instagram. Oh, the Magnificent Seven, yeah, from, is it Manchester? Can't remember. But yeah, the Magnificent Seven is on this weekend. So, guys, that's it from me. Unless there are any last-minute questions, I'll give you a minute to type them in. If not, I will thank you all for joining the show. Thank you, G-Chain. Thank you. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thank you, Philip Answer. Thank you, Alex from the States. Thank you to Jordan Medford. Star Fox, Jim Bob, Craft, G-Chain, and all else. Have a great weekend. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time.